What's up, gamers? Next Riftbound review. Today we're looking at Calm. And again, the seal, we covered this in the Fury video already. The short of it is not every deck might want to invest a card into this, but the effect is good. So eventually, at least some of these seals, depending on the colors, will find a home. Next up, to get into the meat of it, 1 energy, 1 power, charm, move an enemy unit. This is just good. This is just a good spell. It's not a reaction. That's something to keep in mind, but if there's a big unit on a battlefield that you want to take, just getting it there, stacking the odds in your favor, just getting it away, stacking the odds in your favor, pretty strong. You can also, if your opponent has a unit in their base, move it to a battlefield that you yourself control to get rid of it that way. So very versatile, very useful card. We'll see a lot of this. Next up, Defy. 1 energy, 1 power, reaction, counter spell that costs no more than 4 and no more than 1 power. Really powerful, really powerful. Obviously you have to kind of use it. You don't have the luxury to keep it for the best things your opponent is going to play, because it's only covering up to a certain cost. You really have to think about it, whether it's worth it keeping for the future, but you don't really have to get a lot out of it to make this worth your while. Like, if your opponent plays a spell just for 2 energy, 1 power, you're already trading up, it's already good there. We're gonna see a lot of this as well. Then 1 energy on guard. Reaction, give a friendly unit +1 this turn, then an additional +1 this turn if it's the only unit you control here. I do feel like to make this worth it, you have to play a strategy that will consistently get the other plus, like make this a +2. It's not that if it doesn't happen, and that if it just doesn't happen to be for 1 energy, the +1 cannot be impactful enough. It definitely can, but if you want to put this in, it's the kind of deck that tries to keep the battlefields with a singular unit from them, and in these kinds of strategies, it's a decent card. It's not like the level we had that in mind. It's not like Stupefy level. Stupefy, the -1, but always drawing is quite a bit better, I think. It just makes it way more consistent, and in a way that you don't really need the -1 to actually do a whole lot to be useful. But on guard is a solid card as well. Next up, 2 energy, block, hidden action. Give a unit shield 3 and tank this turn. Oh yeah, this is a pretty interesting defensive spell. So basically you buff something by 3 might, but you can also manipulate how your opponent has to assign the damage, which makes it really interesting. There's a lot of potential in that, outplaying your opponent in the way they can assign the combat damage. If they move to a battlefield to take out a certain unit, just buff the other one, make that take all the damage. Maybe enough to save it. This is a pretty good card. Next up, 2 energy, 2 might, clockwork keeper. As you play me, you may pay 1 green power as an additional cost. If you do, draw 1 card. Yeah, this is also just a good card. This is just so solid, and so many decks like an effect like this. If you cannot afford, like, 1 power to draw 1 card is fine. You're basically spending a rune to draw a card. Really, depending on the situation, that can be pretty good. If you like have an abundance of runes but not that many cards, you're very happy to do so. And usually, in the usual circumstances, I feel like it's definitely a fine trade-off, and it's optional. So if you don't want to do this, you can still play this as a 2 energy 2 might, and it won't be that bad. This is just a very, very solid card that almost any deck would like. Next up, 2 energy Discipline. Reaction, give unit +2 this turn, draw 1 card. Yeah, this again here with the card draw. It does give +2. With this, you're not as happy cycling it for 2 energy. With it's still, if it happens that you have to do it, it's not that bad. But you really want to get some value out of the might. But on a reaction, this is just a very solid, very good interaction. This is the kind of card that in no situation will be like completely broken, completely insane, but it's always really good. Next up, 2 energy gear, Mask of Foresight. When a friendly unit attacks or defends alone, give it +1 this turn. So pretty specific again to these decks that want to hold a battlefield with just a singular unit, and may be good enough there, but even in those decks, I'm not entirely convinced by this. For 2 energy, just the +1 really doesn't do a whole lot. Obviously, the upside obviously is that you get this down the line every single turn, but it's not like this is generating guaranteed advantage. This is not drawing a card every turn. This is not some concrete advantage. It's just make your units a little bit more powerful, maybe get advantages that way. So in these kinds of 1 unit on per battlefield decks, this might be just good enough, but I don't think, like, even in those decks, I feel like it's at best a fine card. Next up, 2 energy Meditation. Reaction. As an additional cost to play this, you may exhaust a friendly unit. If you do, draw 2, otherwise draw 1. Yeah, this is just a good draw spell. 2 energy for draw 2 is really good, obviously. It's, yeah, again, similarly to Discipline. If you have to play it for 1, it's not the end of the world, right? And the additional cost to exhaust a friendly unit may not always be that bad, like especially for slower decks that don't maybe are too required to get like commit a unit to a battlefield immediately. It's not even that bad to just exhaust like the unit you played on turn 1, on turn 2 with this, if you have something else to play with it. But there will also relatively often be the situation that you can just exhaust a unit that's already at a battlefield that you don't really want to move off there. And then you basically get the 2 energy draw 2 for free. So very good, obviously, very good in that situation. Next up, 2 energy 1 power Rune Prison. Action, stun a unit. It doesn't do combat damage this turn. Okay, this gets bigger the bigger the unit is. And once you hit a certain size of unit, this definitely can become worth it. The issue with this card is that you really you still need enough damage on your own side to be able to actually kill that unit anyways. So this is something that the situation it's best in is when you already were relatively close to being able to deal with your opponent, with what your opponent has. And at that point, I don't even think they're like, I don't even know if spending a power on that feels that good. And oftentimes, if you're like very behind, if it's not close, if you're like very behind and don't have a lot of board presence, this really doesn't do anything. So I'm not really seeing it with this card. Next up, 2 energy, 1 power, Spirit's Refuge, a gear. When you play this, buff a friendly unit. Friendly buffed units have deflect if they didn't already. Okay, this I think is a pretty good card. Obviously in buff decks this is really strong. Not only providing a buff every single turn, but also adding deflect on anything, making it a lot more difficult for your opponent to deal with your stuff. Really strong, but even outside of decks that are not looking to continually, like that are not looking at buff synergies, this also seems pretty good. Just making a unit slightly bigger, slightly more difficult to deal with every single turn seems pretty powerful. Like, yes, we are paying, compared to Mask of Foresight, yeah, we are paying 1 power basically, and technically Mask of Foresight, if you're controlling 2 battlefields, things like that, could buff 2 units in a turn. But just the fact that the buffs, like, not only can they accumulate, but you also get the deflect on top of that, makes this, in my opinion, quite a lot better. And this is even good enough that in certain decks that are not looking too much at buffing units, this might sometimes make the cut. Next up, 2 energy, 2 might, Stalwart Poro with a shield. So when he's defending, he's at 3 might. And this, again, solid card like all the other French vanilla drops that are basically in line with the stats you would expect. One thing to note though for this is that this is one of the, if not the best early drop for now for these kind of defending alone decks. Just committing this to a battlefield and playing around this for the first couple of turns as your only minion, buffing it, things like that. Like, for that strategy, this is a really good card. And that strategy definitely is, with Master Yi being one of the best legends, is definitely a strategy worth playing around. So this is seeing a lot of play there. Next up, a 2 energy gear, Zhonya's Hourglass. You can also hide it instead of casting it regularly. So you can also, instead of playing it for 2 energy, play it for 1 power. That's a neat option, definitely. The next time a friendly unit would die, kill this instead, recall that unit exhausted. So just keeping something alive, pretty good. Just a pretty good interaction using this to save something else. You don't have to replay it, like with the bounce effect we had last time in the mind. Like, using this is better using it defensively because you don't have to spend the costs again, but doesn't have, like, has less utility, obviously. Like, this is just to protect something, but if you protect something, it doesn't have to be like, if you protect a 3-drop, a 4-drop, with this you're already quite happy. Then a Caitlyn Patrolling, 3 energy, 1 power, 3 might. I must be assigned combat damage last, so she's not there in the backline, and you can exhaust her, deal damage equal to my might to a unit at a battlefield, use this ability only while I'm at a battlefield. Okay, this is a cool card. I like this card. It synergizes well with increasing her might. It has some very interesting strategic applications. So the way that this card works is that you have like this with a couple of other units that protect her, because this must be assigned combat damage last, at your battlefield, and then snipe units at the other battlefield with this. To either soften that up and be able to conquer it in the future, or just to hurt your opponent's card advantage, be able to do it that way, maybe deny a point, slow your opponent down that way. There's a lot of interesting things this card can do. I'm just not convinced that this fantasy is like quite as good as you imagine it being, and works out quite as often as you might imagine if like looking through the rose-tinted glasses. First off, committing this with just 3 might to a battlefield means that it's not that difficult to remove. And you also, for this to work, have to get into this situation where you get to control 1 battlefield, ideally have more units there, and then shoot your opponent at the other battlefield. Like, it seems very specific to me, and considering that, I don't know if this is worth it, especially again because it's still with being a side combat damage last. Just committing it to a battlefield makes it so much more susceptible to removal. Again, Kaiser being the best and most represented deck in the format, very like almost guaranteed for the foreseeable future, does not bode well for Caitlyn. And even in a different meta game, I feel like it's, how do they call it, the fantasy, like, this is a little bit too Disneyland, probably. Next up, 3 energy, find your center. Action: if an opponent scores within 3 points of the victory score, this costs 2 less. Draw 1 and channel 1 rune exhausted. Okay. Playing this for 3 is not that terrible. Like, in orange we just ramp. Channel 1 rune exhausted for 2, and that's fine. Drawing 1 card for an additional energy on top of it can't be that bad, right? That has to be fine as well. And it being cheaper later on, like, playing this for 1, drawing 1, channeling 1 rune exhausted, means that even later into the game, when the ramp becomes less important, it keeps up its, like, it stays pretty good. Yeah, this just seems like a good ramp option. Signature spells, yeah. 3 energy, 1 power, last stand. Action: double a friendly unit's might this turn, give it temporary. Okay. So quite a hefty cost on this. With the 1 power and basically killing one of your units. But making a 4 might unit being able to stand up to 8 might could definitely be well worth it in this case. So this is kind of interesting. It does get better the bigger the unit is you're targeting, but also it kind of, the bigger the unit is you're targeting, it becomes kind of unnecessary. Like, the less necessary it becomes. Obviously, if your opponent dropped a big Mundo and you can just run a harvest big unit into it, like, it's not that even if you place it on like a 10 power minion, it's unnecessary always, but there probably is like a sweet spot in like the mid 4, 5, 6 might where this really feels the best oftentimes. And I do imagine in this that this is a solid card, though The cost is quite high. You need another minion that has some like a reasonable amount of might on the board already, so it's also somewhat situational. And ideally you also have other things to then move to the battlefield afterwards to be able to keep it even with the buffed minion dying. Although this pretty much, with such a big unit then there, oh no, it only doubles this turn, so it doesn't keep the doubled might. Oh, okay. That, okay, I just thought that it pretty much guarantees you keeping that battlefield for a turn, but with the doubling only working for this turn, it does not work out that way. That said, as an action, it can also be used defensively, and I think this is a solid card. 3 energy party favors. Each other player chooses cards or runes. For each player that chooses cards, you and that player each draw 1. For each player that chooses runes, you and that player each channel 1 rune exhausted. Okay, this is another one of those cool 4-player cards. This has no place at all in 1v1s, but in 4-player, it's you get to draw or channel 3 runes. That seems fine. Even though it's not crazy, but it's one of those fun cards that can incite some politics, some discussion at the table when playing in the multiplayers, and I'm all for these kinds of cards in that setting. Next up, 3 energy 1 power 3 might Poro Herder. When you play me, if you control a Poro, buff me and draw 1. Okay. So this is only good if you already control a Poro. Then it's actually pretty good. So if we get a like very Poro focused deck, this will have a space there. Outside of that, probably not. Next up, Solari Shieldbearer. 3 energy 2 might. When you play me, stun a unit. Interesting card. The thing with this card is that it's better proactively, because you already have to control a unit. You play this, stun an opposing unit at a battlefield, then move that, kill the stunned unit, take the battlefield, and so on. Which is, if that happens, is pretty powerful. So this might be an option for aggressive decks. That said, if that situation does not arise, this is very bad. Then this is very bad. So we have to see if there's a deck that likes this. Maybe there's even some additional benefits, some additional payoffs you can get of stunning. Like with this card, you obviously think of Leona. I'm not quite sure what the legend does actually. It's not one of those super commonly played legends. But with additional stun synergy, this could obviously look very differently right now. It could be a strong tempo option for some very aggressive decks, but it might not be consistently good enough to actually make the cut. Next up, 3 energy gears, Solari Shrine. When you kill a stunned enemy unit, you may exhaust this to draw 1. Okay, there's the extra stun synergy. If a stun deck works out, this could have a place in there. We have to see how much stun synergy we see. For 3 energy plus the additional condition of having to stun something, it could be a little bit clunky. And a big issue, we have to see with how the stun synergies look out. But like I said, the way this works, it's more in it has a home in more proactive decks, which I think this is not fitting into particularly well. And next up, 3 energy, Stand United. Hidden action. Buff a friendly unit. Buffs give an additional +1 to friendly units this turn. Okay, so it's basically a +2 on its own. Not particularly strong. But once you have like once you have 1 or 2 additional buffs at a battlefield, it becomes okay. Everything beyond that, it's really good. So if a deck, if we have a strong buff strategy that consistently has multiple units buffed, this is good there. But in every other situation, it's a little bit underwhelming. Again, depending on how many and how good the options for hidden decks are, just the fact that it has hidden could mean that it finds a way to sneak into the lists there, but I don't think those kind of decks will be happy to play a card like this. Next up, 3 energy, 3 might, Sunlit Guardian, Shield, and Tank. Yeah, this is just a very solid 3-drop. I think. Shield and Tank means that this is not like this is not that crazy in these defending, attacking alone decks like the Poro is. Because tank is not useful there, and at that point you'd just rather have the cheaper version of this card. Like just paying 2 energy for just 2 might, you're fine with the Poro. You probably feel better about get on the board a little bit earlier. This for those kind of decks, that might be the issue of this card, that the Shield Poro outclasses it a little bit. For decks that actually are interested in the tank keyword, though, this might just be a solid 3-drop. Next up, 3 energy, 2 might, Wielder of Water. While I'm attacking or defending alone, I have +2. Another of those cards intended for the for the attacking or defending alone decks, for obvious reasons. Though it only gets up to 4. Yes, it also works while attacking, and 4 might for 3 energy is obviously better. It's obviously overstated. I just feel like even in those attacking or defending alone decks, you oftentimes get into a situation with these early drops where they start to become unable to actually hold the battlefield on their own, so you want to actually move an additional unit there that then could take over in the future. But there are a lot of even in those decks there are a lot of situations where you can't just hold the battlefield with just 1 card, and then this is really bad. Like if we compare that to the Poro really doesn't care. Like with the Poro, the attacking or defending alone is just a bonus for the other cards in your deck. It's not a requirement for the Poro to be good. For this one it is. And that's something I don't particularly like about this card. I don't think that you can really afford to just play around this. For the downside of this card, I don't think the 1 additional might makes it good enough. Like even then, this comes down early enough to assume that one of the battlefields is open anyways, so the fact that this also gets these stats while attacking alone oftentimes will not matter, and then at that point I probably just rather have the Sunlit Guardian, even in those kinds of decks. Next up, 3 energy, 2 power, Wind Wall, reaction, counter a spell. Okay, 2 power cost, again, quite hefty, but the effect is really good. This in like slower metas where we can expect to see big spells, things like that, this is a really good card. Whether or not we will see that right now, I feel like even right now with the meta we expect on release, it's already a decent card, even if with how aggressive Kai'Sa is, how a lot of her spells are relatively cheap. This is not crazy. It's not the kind of meta this card wants to be in, but even in this kind of meta, like, there will always be a couple of bigger spells that you can hit with this, and that will always just be good. Next up, for energy, 3 Might Adaptatron. When I conquer, you may kill a gear. If you do, buff me. I've not seen a lot of gears that really want to get killed. Oh, you can. It's not a friendly gear. You probably can kill an enemy, an opposing gear, which has some merit. The issue with this card, so with being an anti-gear card, this is a clear side deck option at best. But even then, even if you're playing against like a very gear focused strategy, the fact that this has to conquer might make it too unreliable. Like, for those side deck cards, you really want options like that are specific but that are very strong and reliable in those specific scenarios. And if we think about what gears we can hit, either it's not really worth it to, like, either the gears are not that important to the game plan of the opposing deck that something like this is worth it to play it early, and then like, especially in the later turns, if you're playing this as an option against like Aurora, I'm not sure that you will get to conquer with this that consistently. So maybe if the meta is very gear dominated and green doesn't have, and like a deck doesn't have a lot of other options against gears, this could find a way. But in the other colors, we've already seen better targeted side deck options against gears that this won't make the cut there. For energy, 3 power, Mystic Reversal reaction. Gain control of a spell, you may make new choices for it. Ooh, this is interesting. This is a very interesting spell. And this is also a spell with a lot of potential. That said, right now, I don't think we have enough like super high cost spells right now in the metagame. But, well, you don't have to hit that high cost of a spell, right? Because technically you are countering them, so you are windwalling it, plus getting the spell yourself. You don't have to pay for it again. So if you're already like hitting a 3 energy 2 power spell with it, that's like coincidentally right now like beneficial to you, it might already be good enough. So maybe I'm underestimating the card a little bit, but I feel like you don't have to be like in a Lux Giga big spell meta for this to be good. Definitely not. But right now I feel like this is at best like a decent option, but similarly to Windwall, is definitely something to watch out for in future meta games. Next up, Sonar Harmonious. For energy, 1 power, 4 might. While I'm at a battlefield, ready, free. 4 friendly runes at the end of your turn. Okay. So this can definitely make sense in like decks that want to conquer one battlefield and then just hold it for the rest of the game with a lot of defensive options and things like that. And there, in a deck like that, this could definitely be pretty good. This definitely has options there. I don't think I'm not sure whether this is the option, is the unit that the attack defend alone decks want to defend a battlefield with just this. Not quite sure there if this is good enough there, but I can definitely see strategies liking this, especially if they also have like some proactive things they could do during their opponent's turn, right? I don't know, actions that summon minions or something like that in the future could make this also a lot better. That said, it's not that difficult to remove. Like, it doesn't have a ton of might. You'd rather pair it with a tank or something at your battlefield to make it a little bit more sticky. And I'm not sure if the effect is powerful enough for that, but it definitely has potential. Next up, 4 energy, 1 power, 4 might, Taric Protector. Shield plus tank, other friendly units here have shield. Okay, this on its own is like not that good. But if you already have 2 or 3 units at a battlefield, you can make that really difficult to conquer. It's a little bit anti-synergistic in that you would rather, like, you would want this to stick around to give the other units shield. But instead, it's the first thing that has to go with being a tank. That makes it kind of anti-synergistic and kind of win more. Like, it's really good only when you already have a big presence at a battlefield. It's kind of win more in that way. And factoring in the kind of anti-synergy here, I'm not particularly impressed on Taric Protector. For energy, for might, Wizened Elder. While I'm buffed, I have an additional +1. Yeah, okay. This seems like a decent card for buff strategies. Just playing for energy for might is not that terrible. If you can buff it immediately, get it up to 6, that feels pretty good. 5 energy, 1 power, 4 might, Ari Alluring. When I hold, you score 1 point. This is obviously a crazy effect. With this score, you can win the game, I think. I'm not sure. How's the wording on Tryndamere? Does Tryndamere specify that? Or because I know you can win with Tryndamere. Okay, it doesn't specify it, so pretty sure Ari can win the game with that as well. Where is she? So a lot of potential in these kind of decks like Taric that want to bolster up one battlefield, hold it to the end. This can definitely put in a lot of work, make you close out the game so much faster. The question is just if there is a deck that gets into that position often enough and needs to win the game that much faster in that situation often enough. Because if you don't, this is just a 5 energy, 1 power, 4 might unit, and that's quite bad. So there is a lot of potential in this. It is kind of win more again with when you're holding an additional point. That's quite the payoff, but if you're holding, you probably already are doing relatively well. And yeah, this is the kind of card I don't want to dismiss it completely. Like, the effect is incredibly powerful, but it might just be a little bit too Disneyland. Alternate artwork, nice. And then Blitzcrank, 5 energy, 1 power, 5 might. Blitzcrank impassive. Tank, when you play me to a battlefield, you may move an enemy unit to here. When I hold, return me to my owner's hand. This is a really cool card. This is such a fun card. I really like these. It's fun for the person playing it. For the person on the other side, it might be kind of annoying. But I really like these cards that are leaning heavily into the battlefield mechanic, make you really think about where you want your units to be, how you want things, how you want, like, being able to outposition, outmaneuver your opponent there. Even though not getting outmaneuvered by Blitzcrank is quite difficult, because he can pull from battlefields and base. That's really strong. So what he kind of wants to do probably is just, if you're holding one battlefield, just trying to pick apart the enemy's army, and gaining advantage that way. And that can be very, very powerful. That can be very, very powerful. The fact that he returns to your hand is a little bit of a double-edged sword. It means that you can also reposition him to the other battlefield if you're holding both, things like that. But does mean that you have to spend the 5 energy, 1 power again to get him again. The stats are not super permanent on this one, but for getting rid of one of your enemy's units and then maybe bolstering a battlefield you control already on top of that, is pretty good. This is not a card. This is probably not a card that every deck really likes, but in certain decks, I think this will be very, very powerful. Next up, 5 energy, 1 power, 5 might, Lee Sin Ascetic. Shield. And you can exhaust him to buff me. And he can have any number of buffs. Okay, that's also a good thing that I was not quite sure about, whether or not units could have multiple buffs. Usually they don't. Okay, that's a big downside to the buff strategies. But Lee Sin also kind of fixes that downside, right? So in very buff focused decks, he looks like a pretty good card. Like already baseline, 5 might, shield, not that terrible. Buffing himself, it's a little bit slow that he has to has to exhaust himself to buff himself, but once this with like a buff, or like once this is at a battlefield and held it and you can just buff it every single turn, that can become that can quickly snowball out of hand quite a bit. So in these buff centric decks, Lee Sin should find a home, because he solves a big problem for those buff centric decks, and his alt art is really cool. Next up, Master Yi Meditative. 5 energy, 1 power, 4 might. While you have 8+ runes, I have +4. Intended for like the ramp Master Yi strategy, which we know is a good strategy, but this is not a good card. Without the 8+ runes, it's just way too bad. And even if you have the 8+ runes, just having an 8 might for 5 energy, 1 power does not seem that crazy compared to some of the other things that you can do at that rune total. So yeah, he's kind of mid and bad, even, so to say. And even like with the deck he's intended for being good, does not see play. 5 energy, 5 might play full phantom, just a vanilla. Oh, yeah, what do you say? Maybe in the beginning, if certain decks lack 5 drops, just maybe, but hopefully not. 5 energy, reinforce. Look at the top 5 cards of your main deck. You may play a unit from among them. Its energy cost is reduced by 5. Then recycle the remaining cards. Okay, this seems like a solid option. If you have like a deck with high enough density of cards, this can definitely of like expensive units, this is a solid option. Although I would not be like I'm asking myself why I'd rather play this over like another big unit, and I'm struggling to imagine why. Like, the upside is that it cycles your deck one, but okay, yeah, that's nice, but is that worth the uncertainty on what you're gonna get? You can obviously miss. The upside is that you may like that you in your hand, if you play like a specific large unit instead of this, it's always just that large unit. This you do have, like with looking in the top 5 cards of your main deck, you probably will often have like 2 or 3 choices which one you want. But I don't think that's worth the option to miss, and I don't even know if we can make a deck full enough of so high cost units that it's realistic to consistently have a lot of options with this. Leona Zealot. 6 might, 6 energy, 1 power. If an opponent scores within 3 points of the victory score, I enter ready. Stunned enemy units here have -8 to a minimum of 1. Okay, so kind of a building comeback mechanic. That's pretty good that she enters ready. The stun effect can be really powerful, like it solves the issue that I was talking about, that, well, even if it doesn't deal damage, you still need to have enough might to remove it, which means that you can't be that far behind for it to be good. This kind of solves that, but for this to be good, you really need it to enter ready. You need a 1 or 2 stuns on top, be able to take out quite a lot of it, and that all seems a little bit too conditional. And with the stun synergy we've seen so far, really isn't what this deck is all about. So yeah, in a stun synergy deck, this is not a bad card, but the stun synergies to me right now seems a little bit all over the place, and this is definitely not the card to bring it all together. Her alt art is nice though. 6 energy, 1 power, 5 might, Mage Seeker, Warden. While I'm at the battlefield, opponents can only play units to their base. While I'm at the battlefield, spells and abilities can't ready enemy units and gear. Okay, this is an interesting effect. Once you are in a commanding position, it can tremendously slow down your opponent and make it a lot more difficult to contest any battlefield at all. But it's not like this 4/6 energy, 1 power, like you already have to be ahead. This needs a turn. Like you already have to be ahead. You already need to control the battlefield to play it there immediately. Otherwise, it needs a turn to really get into the things. And I don't think that this, for what it does, I really expect there to be better and more game-winning cards in the kind of situations where this is good. Yasuo Remorseful. 6 energy, 2 might, 6 power. When I attack, deal damage equal to my might to an enemy unit here. And this is pretty decent. The 2 power is a little bit stingy on this card, I think. I feel like for 1 power it would feel a lot better, because again it's relatively slow. It needs to wait a turn, attack then, and is obviously really good with might buffs, and this alone representing 12 damage. Like, there are a lot of things that are really good about this card, and a lot of things to like about this card. It's good with increasing its might. It's really good on the offensive, but it feels a little bit expensive. It's not good at defending. It's not particular like Yasuo's main gimmick. If we think about the champion, Yasuo's main gimmick is like cheating the movement, moving units an additional time. This does not synergize too much with that. Like, it definitely can. You regularly move it to one battlefield, attack there, get the point, and then pull them back, because again, it kind of covers this weakness of not being particularly strong defensively. But I don't think that's the optimal way to use the Yasuo Legends effect. You'd rather use it to kind of cheat tempo a little bit, to move a unit before it's ready, which is also good with this, to get on the offensive, don't get me wrong. And to use on a ganking unit, to be able to attack both battlefields in the same turn and things like that. This is not a bad card, but it is a card with clear weaknesses that might, like, that make it sometimes feel kind of awkward, I think. That's kind of the thing, the way I see this card. Here's all that. Nice 6 energy, 1 power, 6 might, Sapphire Sage, shield. Yeah, this isn't a good card. It's just a Frenchman vanilla, but costs a power. I don't like it. Eclipse Herald, 7 energy, 1 power, 7 might. When you stun an enemy unit, ready me and give me +1 this turn. Okay, this could be a decent payoff for a stun strategy, but similarly to the Leona thing, to the Leona champion, we don't have enough ways to stun, and like the cards, a lot of the cards seem to try slightly different things, not really like coming together with in a coherent strategy, like in a coherent game plan, like all cards working towards a similar game plan. Again, the stun card we saw in the beginning, this one I think is a lot more good, is a lot better proactively, whereas Solari Shrine, the Leona, and this card as well make it seem more of a slower strategy, and I'm not sure if that's the way to go. Next up, 7 energy, 6 might, tasty faithful, accelerate and death knell. Channel 2 runes exhausted and draw 1. Okay, this just seems like a good 7 drop. Especially for decks like this does enter relatively late, so you might already be relatively close to the rune maximum. This is definitely then at the point where when you play this you definitely want to already be exhausting runes to not hit the maximum, things like that. But yeah, it's just very solid. Very solid. With the accelerate, it has flexibility, and the death knell, additional runes, additional draws will always be good. So just a very solid 7 drop. Next up, 8 energy, 8 might, 2 power. White Flame Protector. When you play me, give a unit +8 this turn. Okay, so this is quite the powerful card. It's reliant on you already having like some established board, but it doesn't need a lot. You just need a singular unit. You give it +8. At that point, almost any unit threatens almost anything. Like, they become really powerful. In that way, it has immediate impact, which for a card of this cost, it's really expensive, is very important. And then afterwards, it's just an 8 might body. This seems like a pretty good payoff for slower strategies right now. And with that, we're through all the calm cards. Yeah, there are definitely a lot of interesting stuff here. Some of the synergies, I'm not like, especially the stun synergy, but also some of the things that are catered towards the attacking or defending alone deck seem kind of weird, even if that is a good deck. But some very, very strong spells and reactions here. Some pretty solid small minions, and yeah, even pretty good payoff with these two for in the higher cost slots. Definitely a lot to like about this color. So that's for the calm cards. Next time we're gonna cover chaos, so if you're excited for that, like and subscribe to not miss out on it, and hope you have a great day, a great time with Riftbound right around the corner, and see you next time. Signing out, bye.